Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Child Find and the special education evaluation process. Eric, what is Child Find?
Well, Child Find is one of the most important activities that public schools engage in. And it comes to us from the federal law known as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and we know it as the IDEA. And Lisa, Child Find really refers to the process, the responsibility of school districts to locate, identify, and evaluate children who are in need of special education services because of a disability. So you can see what an important responsibility that is on public school districts all over the country.
Right. So, how do you get your child evaluated?
Well, it's a pretty straightforward process that's mandated under our Texas rules as well as federal law. But very practically speaking, it's important to know that if you're a parent of a student and you suspect that your child has a disability or may need special education services, that it's important to go to your school district administrator, a principal at the campus, or the director of special education at your school district and ask for it. You ask for the evaluation, and it's important to be specific, explain the concerns you have, and the school district will take charge of the process that will follow regarding the evaluation if the district agrees to conduct an evaluation. But pretty practically, Lisa, it's important that parents put that request in writing,
Okay.
present that to a principal or the school district's special education director. Well, and then that will trigger some responsibilities by the school district.
So, so I'm a parent, and I have talked to the school district requesting an evaluation for my student, for my child. So, what happens next?
Well, the school district then, if once they receive a written request to evaluate a child for special education, basically speaking, they have a decision to make.
Okay.
They have a responsibility to determine whether or not they should go forward with the evaluation process. So agree to do it, agree to provide that evaluation. Or the law does provide that a school district can decline to conduct the evaluation. I think, Lisa, we should talk about why a school district might refuse or decline to conduct an evaluation
Yeah.
first. So, under the law and under the rules that schools operate by in the state of Texas, a school district could choose to decline to conduct an evaluation because they don't feel that the child has a disability and requires special education services. But it's important to know that they have a responsibility to explain that. And they explain that in a document that's called a prior written notice. And again, much like many of these terms under the IDEA, prior written notice is referred to by its acronym PWN. And so you'll receive a document that explains the district's decision not to evaluate the child for special education services. And the school district will provide another document. Lisa, what's that document?
The Notice of Procedural Safeguards.
The Notice of Procedural Safeguards. That document is very important as well. It explains the process under the IDEA that speaks to the provision of special education services in public schools, and it basically outlines the rights of a parent of a student with a disability, the rights that they have regarding this process under the IDEA. So that's the summary of what a school will do when they decline to conduct an evaluation.
Well, so what if I went to the doctor and I took my child to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician said your child has autism, and I take that I take the information from the doctor to the school. Does the school just automatically accept that, or do they have to evaluate, or what happens?
No, not necessarily. While that is very important information that a parent may receive from a doctor or another professional that provides some useful, some valuable information about the child's condition, that information does not automatically result in a special education evaluation or services to be provided by the public school district. But that's information that could certainly trigger a school district's responsibility to consider whether or not the district should conduct an evaluation. And the school district will provide information regarding the evaluation process and understand if that is the procedures that they should start based on that input provided by the parent.
So that information from a doctor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist is good information for the school to have, but that's more, could be more of a medical or clinical diagnosis, right?
Correct.
So the school district by law is required to conduct their own evaluation and determine if the child meets eligibility under IDEA.
Right.
So there is that
very
different.
clear. That's very clear under the law that the school district has a responsibility to go through the evaluation process if they decide to conduct the evaluation and have that lead the decision whether or not the child should receive services in the public school. It's not dictated or mandated simply by a doctor's information or prescription or other outside information.
Okay. So we talked about what happens if a district determines that it's not necessary to do an evaluation. What if the school district agrees and they want to provide an evaluation for the child?
Right. And so, very practically speaking, if the school district does decide that they should conduct an evaluation of the child to help determine if the child has a disability and needs special education services because of the disability, what they'll do is they'll reach out to the parent to gather information to help them start that process and help them really understand the child's condition and any needs regarding that particular child. So they may discuss with the parent the kinds of tests and instruments that they're going to use in order to complete the evaluation process. And of course, they'll discuss the results of those kinds of tests. But this is also a process, Lisa, that's mandated under state rules, our state rules in Texas. And so there's a very specific timeline associated with the completion of an evaluation and some other procedures that are in place under the law.
What is the timeline? The district has agreed to do an evaluation on our child and on my child, and they've determined that it's appropriate. They've contacted me. They've given me the information. I've signed permission to do the testing. How long does that take?
The school district is required to complete an evaluation from the date that the school district receives written consent by a parent in order to conduct that evaluation. They may take up to 45 school days to complete a written report, a written evaluation report. Now, that timeline can be adjusted as permitted under the rules based on or because of certain scenarios. So, for example, if the student is absent from school for over 3 days, then the timeline is adjusted, and that could add to the deadline by which the evaluation report can be completed. There are also rules in place in Texas that say that if the school district receives consent with less than 45 school days in a school year, but more than 35 school days in that same school year, the school district can adjust the timeline by which they complete the evaluation report and have that completed in the summer, but no later than by the first day of the next school year. So you can see that these timelines provide for some flexibility depending on what time during the school year the parent gives written consent for the student to be evaluated.
So it would be fine if I wanted to know how the date that the child would have to be tested by or where they were in the process. It would be fine for me to contact whoever that point of contact was and find out that information.
Yeah, of course. The school district is responsible for providing all of this information to parents and explaining the process, including explaining when the deadline is to be met for the completion of the evaluation report. And by the way, if the school district receives written consent to conduct an evaluation less than 35 school days within the same school year, understand that the school district may have the ability to complete the evaluation report in the following school year by a fixed deadline as well. So again, just to reiterate that there is some flexibility in the rules, and the school district is responsible for communicating the deadlines, the amount of time it'll take, and the process by which the district will engage in to complete the evaluation. So
okay. And so the district completes the evaluation, and what happens next?
Well, that's a very good question. There is a committee of people that's responsible for considering all of the information that's contained in the evaluation report. And that committee is referred to in Texas as the Admission Review and Dismissal Committee, known by its acronym as the ARD committee. Now, the parent is a very important member of that ARD committee and contributes to the discussion and really is expected to participate in the meeting to review the outcome of the evaluation. And at that meeting, the committee decides based on the evaluation and the information presented there and any discussion that's had at that ARD committee meeting, the committee decides whether or not the child meets eligibility for special education services. So a decision is made at that meeting, and that meeting must be held per the rules, must be held within 30 calendar days of the date the evaluation report is completed. So again, these timelines are explained by the school district, and the meeting must be completed within 30 days after the evaluation is completed. And at that meeting, the ARD meeting, a decision is made whether or not to find the child should receive special education services or not.
Okay. So it sounds like there's a lot of responsibility on the part of the school district, but there's also responsibility on the part of the parent to provide as much information and work as a team member when making those decisions and determining eligibility for a student. So this is just a very brief video on how to ask for an evaluation, what to do. We've also attached some resources here that you'll see on the screen that will help you, parent, as you walk through this process with your child. So we hope that you have found this helpful.